and welcome back to part 7 of Final Fantasy XII, where today we'll be continuing our escape, now with Captain Barsh at our side, even if he is a little bit damaged on his back and a little weaker than normal. He doesn't even have a weapon on him, he's going to be punching any enemies we go forward to. But we have to work our way through these tunnels. And there's a gimmick with these tunnels, being that there is a power system that runs through it. And you can't do anything unless the power is on. But the power is dictated by a percentage, and that percentage is going to start ticking down as you travel through, because there are electric based enemies that will be draining the power from exposed wires. However, if you kill them, you get the power back, so as long as you keep moving and deal with every enemy that comes, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Now you're going to see here, I'm going to buy a bow and a bow gun for Fran and Balthier respectively, but I'm not going to be able to equip the bow gun straight away because it requires a special type of ammo we just don't have right now. So you're going to see after you buy it, because when you buy anything that requires ammunition, it won't let you just equip it because you'll need to equip the ammo with it afterwards. So you won't be able to just equip it from this menu. But when we go to, you'll notice that it won't let us equip Balthier's weapon because we don't have the ammo, and I didn't realise, so don't bother to buy the ammo now. But I do buy some echo herbs too, because it's just made it available to us, so it saves the hassle later on. And just as a habit, even if you have no real intention of using a type of magic, buy every spell that becomes available to you as they do, so you don't have to worry about them later. Because you can buy your first arcane magic here, and arcane magic is some of the more elite but curious dark and black magic spells that used to be in the older games that's been changed to be its own spell type in this one. We're talking things like instant kill spells, or dark, as the one we just brought was one of them. Things like break and things like that. Just spells that can do damage or can hurt an enemy in some way, but in more curious ways than the standard just hitting it with heavy fire kind of thing. Arcane magic as a whole I'll barely be bothering with and probably get the least amount of attention from me, but I will try, if the opportunity arises, to show it off a little bit. I'm just aware with the classes that I set, there is a chance that I could easily just give my main cast a board that doesn't allow dark magic, and if that's the case, then it's just what happens. But when you flick the switch on its own, it won't do anything. Instead, you need to take the fuse that you got from talking to the creature down there, and that will fill up the charge bar. That has now just been seen on screen. The charge will fill all the way up to 100%, and anytime you flick a switch, it will take a chunk of 30% out of it. If the percentage drops below 50, zombie-like enemies will start spawning in the area ahead. If it drops to 0, you're in trouble. I've never let it drop that low though. If you, like, as I said before, if you keep moving and keep up the aggression, you should be fine. You just got to be wary of that gauge. If the gauge starts to drop like really quickly, you need to be on the lookout for enemies that are biting at exposed wires. And as you're going to see here, I'm going to attempt to equip the bow gun, but we don't have the ammunition for it, so it can't be done. We have bullets and we have arrows, but we do not have bolts. So you're going to see I'm going to try and give it, we just can't do it because I don't have the bolts for it. So yeah, so I have a little moment of trying to work out, go, hang on a minute, and before I realise, oh, I just don't have the ammo for it, never mind. I've also brought the Mage Masher for Varn, but you don't really need to because you can find a Mage Masher in the approaching area, but I wasn't aware of this on the top of my head, so brought it for safety there.
Hey! Who turned out the lights? One of those?
I've heard of these. Mimics. They disguise themselves as all manner of things, then strike when you're least wary. Some of them have a fondness for energy, I'm told. They gorge themselves on the stuff till there's naught left.
So, what happens then?
Lights out, and it's worse in the dark. Much worse. So, let them get too close to one of those conduits and they'll suck it dry. But don't worry, it'll give the energy back if you ask nicely. Sticking it with a sword helps too. Clock's ticking.
So as Bolfir said, these mimics are going to be absorbing the electricity, and so that charge percentage, it starts off pretty dangerously low to educate you. But when you kill it, if you pay attention, the charge bar will take a boost, as you saw. The reason why they're called mimics is because when they're sleeping, they look like the treasure crates you're seeing around the place. So mimics will actually have a different design if the loot crates are different, depending on where you are. You have these baby mimics as well that are floating around, that will be created constantly from the big ones if you leave them alone. So it's always worth going out of your way to get them when you can. But it's worth mentioning that this is the first decently sized dungeon environment in the game. Like, the waterway was technically our first dungeon per se, but this is the first one that kind of sets the tone for the length. And the fact that we're doing it at double speed through all of here is going to be more of a blessing than you might realise if you've never played this before. Because one of the things that is kind of criticised with 12, and I don't mind it so much, but I understand the criticism, the length of some of the dungeons in this game are hideously long. And it's because of Square Enix's determination at the time to still be the head honcho of the genre. And so their way of trying to stand out as being the best was to just make the scale huge. It's the main reason why this is the longest Final Fantasy, and why this project is going to take forever, and why I've been so adamant on making sure you'll know that you're not going to get parts 5 days a week like normal. Like last week I ended up missing Friday just because I was recording more stuff. And to be honest, I don't know how many parts I'm going to get this week, because this is the only part that was ready edited, so I just need to do the voiceover for. The rest of it, either more stuff needs to be recorded for the sake of clarity, or I just have yet to start editing it and it's like 2 hours worth of footage. And so I need to be able to edit it down and then work out how many parts it's going to be split into, things like that. Like, I've been doing 3 to 4 hour recording sessions every time I've gone to. Like, all the parts up until this one was recorded in one session. This was the start of my second session, this part that you're watching as I talk over it now. Just because it would save hassle. If I just like stopped every half an hour to save and put in editing, I'd get nowhere. But because of it, I can't promise any kind of consistency with the uploads with this. Hell, I might counter it and try and upload on the weekends on occasion, but there will just be, if you've ever looked at my about page on my channel, the phrase "it'll be there when it's ready" will apply a lot heavier to this Let's Play than any project I've done in a while. It hopefully won't be as bad as it was many years ago when I was caught up with college and wasn't just in the best like health space, where it was like months between parts. No, it'll never be that bad, because I want to make it at bare minimum 1 if not 2 parts per week as a bare minimum. It's just seeing how far we get. On the flip side though, with longer dungeons, I'll try and get more of it done in a single part, so the videos are going to be longer to try and compensate for the wait a little bit. Hence the point of this video. It might be a little shorter, a little longer after I finish up the last bit of editing, but it's currently about 48 minutes long. None of it will be over an hour long if I can help it, just because the PS4 won't allow it. The PS4's auto record stops you from going any longer. Maybe when the PS5 comes out, if this project's still going on, the PS5 will take off that restriction. But that's the thing, like, I hope we can transfer, if the PS5's backwards compatible, I hope we can transfer our saves. It'll probably just be through cloud, like they won't let us do it the way you can do it between PS4s, where you can link them both up. It'll probably just be through a cloud save you can get them. Which, if that's the case, it won't be too much hassle. I'll just have to be sure, like, everything I've recorded is uploaded beforehand, because I doubt I'll be able to transfer my recorded footage as well. But if the PS5 does, like, take off the restrictions, and it'll probably up the quality of what gets uploaded as well, because 720p at 30 frames being the absolute maximum on PS4, I don't know what it's like on Pro, I'm starting to feel it a little bit. It was fine at first, but I'm starting to yearn, especially because I want to cover Devil May Cry 5 at some point, and if I want to cover it, similar to how regrettably I couldn't cover 3 at 60 frames, I'd want to cover 5 at 60 frames. Just because it's the true beauty of the game. Or the same with the Kingdom Hearts 3, when I was going through all the data fights. I wanted to show all them at 60 frames, because despite being on a base PS4, or a Slim in my case, all the data fights ran at a smooth 60 on PS4 Slim, and it was really impressive to see in motion, because it's not a locked at 60 game like DMC. it's an uncapped frame rate. So there are some cutscenes in the main game where it dips, or some of the more explosive fights where it dips. So the fact that it was a smooth 60 across all the data fights and Yuzora was a blessing, and I wanted to show that, but I couldn't. But that's assuming it even has recording ability. If it doesn't, if the PS5 doesn't have any kind of share play or sharing footage functionality whatsoever, it will probably stop me buying it, if I'm honest. Because right now I'm intending on getting it relatively close to launch. Like, we've all got an idea that the price is going to be around $500 US, and so the fact that I like kind of built it in my mind it's probably going to be around there means I can save and be prepared for it when it comes. Because I'm probably going to get it over the Xbox Series X just because the games I like are for it. It's not about being a Sony fanboy about that. I don't care about Last of Us. I'm talking about my anime shit. I prefer that the exclusives that I like are the majority of them are on PS4. So there's no reason for me to suddenly go to Xbox when the games that I like are going to be on PS5. But that being said, if it hasn't got SharePlay, I'll be hesitating because I'll be attempting to save up money then to get something similar to work with, so I can continue recording going into the PS5. Because I don't have any recording equipment. I used to built-in recording equipment because I don't work like a big full-on like rent-paying job. I just work a part-time work at a local supermarket. Like, I don't get paid magic for it. I can't suddenly just go out of my way and buy a capture card, buy a fancy computer that can handle my footage at a decent quality, etc, etc. It's not going to happen until I can get a better job, which is a work in progress, but we'll see. But one day I want to move to capture cards regardless. Like, I want to like dedicate some time, teach myself to edit, get on Adobe or whatever ends up being the best at the time I get into it, really learn the functionality and do it properly. Because SHAREfactory has been a great introduction, but it's not, I don't want to be on here forever, especially because my mic can do far better audio quality than it's currently giving. Like, I have tested it off a PC. The audio quality is fantastic on this headset. It is just compressed because of the PlayStation 4's unfortunate limitations. Well, I say limitations, at the time it was great, but just like everything, it has aged a little bit. Any flan or slime type enemy is weak to elements, so stop your magic attack, no, stop your physical attack and prioritize your magic attacks on flan. If you've played 15, or where you watched my 15, you already know this, that your physical attacks do barely anything to them, but magic decimates them. There's another battery mimic nearby, so we need to deal with that in a second. But we'll have Fran burn this along, because Fran starts with fire and thunder, so there's no reason, no matter what class you give her, for you to not get some little extra out of her at the start. There we are. But I'm hoping with the PS5, when that comes out, that it'll have an improved mic quality anyway, because there was a patch for the PS4, or like a software update that did improve the mic quality a little bit, but in my recording I couldn't really notice the difference. I think it's more intended for party chat, so who knows. But that being said, once you've explored out of this area, you are going off into this corner here, because there's another switch you need to flick that opens a door that we currently can't get past. So you have to deter. This is probably the most linear dungeon you're going to get, so make the most of it, because they are going to start opening up and getting... Well, I say that the actual goal to the end is always linear, it's just the sheer scale of them is going to explode. Once we're past the prologue, because we're still in the prologue technically, once we're past the prologue and everything kicks off officially, it's going to get pretty wild in scale. I also decided to spare an ether for Fran here. I remember on my blind playthrough of this game back when the Zodiac Age first came out, having a bit of trouble keeping MP up in stressful situations, because it always just ticks up on its own as you travel around, as we get a top Carpi hat, which is just a random drop you can get. You can also attempt to steal it, but it's not the end of the world. It's a level 2 Mystic armor, and you can buy them later on if you don't get them now, so don't worry about it too much if you get it now, but it is nice to have early, so then when you're building up your mage, you've already got the hat for them. And it's something that you'll get a feel for. This, although it feels different, it is very much in the nature of classic Final Fantasy in terms of the importance of loot. Rare drops are a thing in this game that you need to pay attention to. Rare steals are a thing you need to pay attention to. It's why I always recommend learning that steal is a thing and using it from an early thing. Having someone have a dedicated, strong a dex or speed stat to get the most out of thieving. And the reason why I am manually commanding Fran to do the magic stat is because the majority of enemies it doesn't matter. So instead of wasting a gambit slot right now, I'd rather manually instruct her to perform. Later on, she'll have one where it's like, if the enemy's weak to fire, cast fire, weak to ice, cast ice, weak to thunder, cast thunder, etc, etc. Now, when you click this switch, you'll hear it, and the charge will go down. You're supposed to remember where the door is. It'll even give you a hint, just in case you forget, saying to the south. So if you backtrack, you'll find it. And there is a treasure here. There's your Mage Masher. If you decide against buying one for Vaan, you can get one here to save the trouble. Which, like I said, works out because I made Vaan someone who prioritizes dagger-based weaponry. So being able to just find a Mage Masher there can be a godsend if you end up not buying one. Because as I said before, Vaan is not going to be in my final team. Balthier is, which is why I was a bit more careful about what I decided to make him. Because even if he's going to be a bit of a slow start, he'll get there. These enemies are what I need to talk about. Just to interrupt myself, these are bombs. The moment you start a fight with one of them, the entire army near them will also start a fight with you. The way they work is, as you can see, they're getting bigger and bigger. The longer you take, or if you don't cast magic they are weak to, the bigger they will get. If they get too big, they will explode, because their name is Bomb after all. The detonation will kill most of your team. If not, it will wipe your whole team. It is brutal. You need to be able to be on the ball if you decide to attack them.
It reeks. Something's close. Nice moves there, Captain.
You mean traitor?
So they say. But I didn't see him kill anyone.
My brother did.
Rex. He said he had a brother 2 years younger. I see. He meant you. Your brother. What became of...
He's dead.
I'm sorry.
It was you who killed him.
I give you my word. That was not the way of it.
Rex, sir. My name's Rex. All I have left, sir. He's 2 years younger than I, living in...
Time box. Save the discussion for later.
We found them!
But if we arrive after he signed the treaty...
Sir, we have little time. You must go to the
As I
tank.
feared. They're slowing us
home,
down.
Captain Oculus,
I'll
and
handle
for my
these.
parents. Captain, why? Our king, what have you done?
His Majesty was a traitor.
A twin brother. Fancy that. But still, the pieces fit, I'll give you that much. And he did look like you.
I don't believe you.
Of course not. It was my fault that Rex was there. I am sorry.
My brother, he trusted you. He trusted you and he lost everything. How can I believe you?
Not me, then. Believe in your brother. He was a fine soldier. He fought to the last to protect his homeland. Now, surely he fought to protect his brother.
You don't know anything!
Believe what you want to. Whatever it takes to make you happy. What's done is done.
To be honest, I don't know why they're so quick to doubt Bash. Like, I get that he was branded a traitor and like everyone kind of just believed it, but we all saw that he had a twin brother. We saw Judge Gabranth take his helmet off and look exactly the same as Bash. So what gives on that immediate doubt? His story makes a degree of sense. Also, family relation in the Empire. That's like another reference to Star Wars. Okay, because instead of it being father, it's brother. And an interesting bit of trivia is that Gabranth, Bash's brother, has a different voice actor from Bash, despite being twins, which I felt makes sense, because even if they're twins, they're not going to sound the same. But in all future content that involves the two of them, they both use Bash's voice actor, which I find really curious. Like, after Final Fantasy XII, everything to do, like say, like when Dissidia came out, Gabranth was in Dissidia and was voiced by Bash's voice actor. It's been that way ever since. It's such a bizarre choice that they decided to make after 12's release, to make them different voice actors. Like, I can suppose in one argument it does make a degree of sense that they would sound similar, but they wouldn't sound the same. And so the fact that they now have the same voice actor is just a bit like, okay. In this area, it looks like there's a tiny space of land that's out of reach. It's not. It's just because there's a piece of land that's just barely in the water, and the water is not deep enough so you can travel through it. But because it's considered not land, it doesn't appear on the map. Things like that are things worth paying attention to, because sometimes the answer to get to an area that seems out of reach is simpler than it looks. As the case being there, you just go behind that rock and you can see that there's a path just across the water. This gate here can't be opened now. This is another dungeon that we'll be able to return to later on with more loot, more stronger enemies, and general just new bosses to fight. But it won't be now. And it's only later on we'll be able to go through that door. Because we are actually nearly done. Despite the fact we're not that far from the previous save point, we're about to get another one because the boss fight is just after it. As you can see on the map, there is a save point here, which I restore my health from but decide against saving at because I felt like it wasn't necessary, because in the next room is our next boss fight. And this one's got a little bit of a gimmick to it, and if you're playing base 12, it's the first kind of obstacle that might get you killed a few times. But on Zodiac Age, they nerfed every single boss in this game slightly to better balance around the fact that there's a new job class system, and so depending on what job you pick, you could enter some of these boss fights a hell of a lot weaker than you would have done back when 12 first came out. With all these spiders around, I guess it was obvious that there was going to be a spider queen of some sort eventually. The gimmick of this boss, that if you're playing base 12, you need to be more on ball of than you do in Zodiac, is that the tiny batteries around the area are going to constantly eat and drain the power, so you need to constantly kill them to keep the power up. If the power goes too low, more enemies will spawn and you'll have a lot more work to deal with. So you want to deal with the tiny batteries as you go around, but you don't need to worry about them to the end's extent. As long as the charge is staying at a decent percentage, you should be fine. So what I tend to do is I clear out the first horde, and then once they're all done, and the Mimic Queen has to stop the spawn more in, I'll let one, maybe two stay alive, but beyond that, I will keep the rest dead. Once the boss is halfway down, it has a chance to ready up an electric-based attack that will likely hit your whole party, this being it now, but it isn't too damaging. And what helped is that Varn blocked it there, so it didn't do anything. But if it does hit you, it's not the end of the world. It'll do a couple hundred, but it won't kill. Unless you're already low. And it ultimately makes for a interesting boss, but it's not too difficult if you're playing Zodiac Age. Like I said, if you're playing base 12, you didn't have the job options, so the bosses were slightly harder because they knew where you could be by then. Whilst in Zodiac Age, because you can pick your job and so it could be different, they had to nerf a lot of the bosses in this game.
To think Dalmascan air could taste so sweet.
Where are we?
The Estes Sand, by the look of it. Let's back to Rabanasta before we shrivel up. By your leave, Captain.
Yes, the hour of my return is already over late. The people may hate me, but that does not free me of my charge.
And our freedom is won. We're back out in the Estes Sands, in an area that we very briefly entered and exited, saying where we go back through earlier, and I even pointed out an area of ruins before we moved on. Those ruins were being the exit point. Now they tell you that you need to head back to Rabanastre, which is what we'll be doing, but we'll be doing it in a different way. There is an orange save point north of where we are, as you saw from that brief map overview that it gave us. The reason why they give you the whole map of the area, even though we don't own the whole map of this area, is so then, if just in case you haven't explored up here, you can still find your way home. But as we enter out to here, we're in the Estes Sands, well, the northern part of the Estes Sands, and the exits that we were from has left us. We just picked up poison, as in the spell, not actual poison. So when the Black Mage gets the ability to do so, they can now cast poison. We don't need to buy it from a shop. Well, I say that, I don't think you can buy it from a shop. I think that one you do have to find. But because we currently have a party of 4, because Barsh is still a guest with us and will remain so until we enter Rabanastre, I decide to now take the opportunity to explore this northern area and continue heading north until we reach the orange save crystal at the top, and then just use our teleport stone from there to come down. If you don't have any of your teleport stones because maybe you sold them by accident or you've been using them because you've been exploring more often, instead head south, and maybe if you want to, deal with the hunt, because you're going to have a breeze dealing with that hunt because you've got 4 of you there instead of it just being Barn. But I decide against it because we'll be coming back to it later on when we've got more of a party together anyway, so I just felt it wasn't necessary to do right now. So I continue heading north towards that small village outpost that you can just see, looting each corner as I go, and then going up there and warping from the teleport stone. The path actually continues even further onwards beyond that outpost, but we can't use it yet because there's a giant river and the boat passage is not available to us, acting as our soft wall. You have to go to the other side of it, talk to someone there, and it will initiate a side quest that once finished will allow the passage through. So you're going to see me kind of scavenge and check around the area and then eventually go towards the outpost towards the north. And it doesn't matter which way you enter Rabanastre, the cutscene will have you entering from the south, because it's just the way they want you to. It's just where they want you to be. Well, I said I don't know that for a fact. I've always just warped there, but it's always just brought me in from the south door, as if I've entered from the south door. There are also ever so slightly stronger cactoids in the area, and I mean ever so slight. You really won't notice the difference, other than the fact that they've got a slightly different design. They're slightly taller. And that enemy did just drop loot that I didn't pick up. Hopefully I noticed before it despawns. I probably don't. Over here though is the back door, which is how we'll be re-entering this dungeon much later on. But the door is locked. There is a side quest you need to do before you'll be given the key to re-enter. But if you re-enter from that door, it will lead you to optional loot, secret areas that we couldn't explore on our first run, and ultimately a boss at the end that will give better loot. As mentioned before, a lot of dungeons in the game can be revisited later on that harbour just better results if you decide to do it, but are far tougher. Most of them are not worth doing until after you've beaten the main story of the game. Which is why you're not going to see me be too fussed about trying to tackle them as soon as I can, because I know you probably won't be ready. Like, even if I barely scrape through, it doesn't mean you'll be ready. There'll also be a few areas later on that I'll be very particular on exactly where I go and instructing you on why I go where I go, because they are too maze-like that if I didn't and just kind of went on as normal, you could get lost even following along. There's one dungeon, if you've played it before, that should immediately spring to mind if you've beaten it before. That it straight up doesn't have a map, and I've mentioned it a few times in the past, just because it is worth harbouring and hammering in if you're getting into this game, that you are in it for the long haul, and there are some things that are going to really wind you up near the end. But when I get to it, I'll almost definitely be following a guide, and not only that, I will be being very particular on where I go. These enemies that you might recognise from the waterway can actually be found right on the very edge here, so you don't need to return to the waterway if you wish to grind them for whatever reason. There's also a measly 52 gil, but that's a randomized chest I can imagine. And up here is the outpost I was on about. There's people you can talk to, and one or two of them will mention that the boats currently aren't traveling because of reasons. And so until then you're stuck here. But you can also talk to this person, and they will mention their chocobo, which is just over there, before they let you buy anything, which doesn't really mean that much. But the first thing you should do, well, the first thing that you could have done earlier but I decided to do now, is I buy the bolts and bombs. And also buy Blizzard, so we got all three of our bases covered with fire, thunder and ice. I don't really bother with anything with the bazaar right now because there's no real need to. But I essentially just do cleanup because there's nothing particularly special, because the game understands that you could easily have just gone there before everything happened. But now we can actually equip the bowgun, which does lower a couple of Balthir's stats, but raises the rest enough to justify its use. And from here, we're now going to warp to Rabanastre. And it's no, like, it doesn't ask if you're sure. The moment you click on it, it takes you. Which kind of caught me off guard, because I was going to show it off and then maybe think about running down, but I just ended up teleporting then and there.
I thank you.
I'd avoid crowds if I were you. In this town, you're still a traitor, you know.
The Resistance will surely find me soon. Fate's will, we meet again. I would pay my respects to your brother.
You're a fugitive now, too. Stay low for a while.
What about the stone?
Do as you like. That stone's ill-favored.
We feel regret. We sought that stone and found ourselves only worry.
You offering it?
It's mine.
Then why'd you ask? Our regards to your girl.
We stay in Rabanastre a while.
What do you think? Can I trust Bosch? I gotta get rid of this thing. But maybe I should show it to Penelo first, so she knows I got something. She'd be at Miguel's place this time of day.
I think you should trust Bosch, Vaughn. I trust him. The fact that he wasn't, after he said his piece, he didn't try and push the subject. He was very much like, I don't care if the world, if I am hated, I still have things I want to do. Like, honor isn't the only thing that matters to him. Saving the people he cares about is what matters to him, and it shines through, and it makes him a pretty interesting character in my book. As if Balthier might be my favourite, but Bosch is actually a pretty close second. I enjoy how they work his character in this game, and what matters to him, and what's significant to him, and what he discards with, despite the fact you think you might care about it.
Vaughn, is it really you? I heard you got took off to Nalbina.
The Imperials will need more than a dungeon to stop me.
You broke out of a dungeon? Whoa!
Hey, try and keep it down, would ya? Penelo isn't around, is she? Out on a delivery, maybe?
Nope, haven't seen her all day. Not like her to up and skip out on work like that. Miguelo's not here either. He went running off somewhere a little while ago.
So much for my big welcome. I guess everybody's busy.
I got my hands full watching the shop, and old Dallin had something for me to do, but I can't get away.
Old Dallin, huh? Tell you what, I'll go see him for you.
Really?
Well, nothing better to do.
Well, I guess it's time to go visit old Dallin, see what he wants. And maybe you can try and find out what happened to Penelo and Miguelo whilst we're at it. This shop is no different, but I decided to take this opportunity to showcase the rest of the shops in Rabanastre now, because now is when they're significant. I mentioned before that once we leave Rabanastre and come back, the shops are going to start to become more significant because you're going to start building a team and start getting ready for adventuring. Now is that time. So I decide now is the time I will be showing where all the shops are. They're all on the east side, so they're easy enough to find. There's only one to the west, and it is tied to the hunts. Once you do more hunts and your rank improves, they'll sell more stuff. So the fact that that's on its own makes sense to a degree. You can see it on the map, it's on that west bracket. Whilst everything else is here on the east, including the Gambit shop, which I highlighted the first time we were here. But there is a protective shops here, or armory, as it should have really been called instead of just the protective shop, where you can buy shields and armor. There's also a magic shop, and then there's the gambit shop, really. But we are nearing the end of this chunky part. Like, we've already been going for like 36 minutes, near enough. We've just got to see what old Darlin wants and see where it leads us, and then I wrap it up apart there. But you can buy your magics here as well, and what's worth mentioning about Rabanashte's shops is that they will update as you travel through the game, so they are worth revisiting, whilst most other shops will not be updated as you go, so will lose their value once the better one comes along. However, one thing that is a welcome change from older Final Fantasies is that, as mentioned before, because every time you touch a save point it counts as a full restore for health and magic, there are no inns in this game. So you don't need to worry about having a spare amount of guild ready at all times just so then you can make sure everyone's get a full heal. You will always get one by just touching a save point. And I can imagine this decision was made because you slowly regenerate health and magic anyway. So having tents or inns on top of that would feel a little redundant because you could just wait it out if you cared that much. So just putting it on save points made sense. And I believe this... No, actually I was going to say I believe this carries on in 13, but 13 your health and stuff resets after each fight. But this is your main gambit shop. They have pretty much everything. And so there are a lot of gambits. You're going to spend the next couple minutes just buying a shit ton of gambits that I know I'm going to need. Maybe not now, but later on. So getting a hold of them now will just save the effort. The difference between weak and vulnerable is just they can be hurt by it. So is it anything other than being resistant or immune to fire? Like, if you attack a fire enemy with fire magic, it's not going to hurt them. But if you attack a normal enemy with fire magic, it will do normal damage. That means vulnerable. Whilst weak, instead, is they'll actually take extra damage from it, depending on the enemy. Like attacking a fire enemy with ice magic, it will do extra damage because they are weak to ice. I also buy every single status recovery. Like, some of them are going to become one and the same. Like, there's a few that I'm going to tie to Remedy, so it's not going to matter so much. And you can get something called Remedy Lore later on, which will expand what Remedy will cover. And I also kind of don't need to get the ones for positive status effects, because they're unnecessary, but I decided to buy them anyway, because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. Berserk, definitely you want to, because Berserk's only going to be so helpful for so long. You can also get specific ones to counter if so many foes are in a given vicinity at once. Like, you might want to say, if there's 3 or more enemies, cast Protect on the team so then they don't get, like, mauled, essentially. I also take the opportunity now to clean up my scrapes and sell the spare loot that we have. None of it particularly valuable, maybe other than this horn, but it's still worth keeping an eye on it and cleaning up, because getting money in this game isn't easy, and so if you can keep on racking it up as you go through other means, do so. If you find an enemy that constantly drops a piece of loot that sells well, you might want to grind it for a while. Also, I just ran straight past, there it is, I just ran straight past the door to Lowtown because I assumed it'd be another giant circular door thing like we saw at the south entrance, but no, this is just a simple gate. Because I'm entering from the north instead, even though Darlin's place is at the far south, but it's still one continuous path, so it doesn't matter too much. I even double checked the map just to be sure. There is someone you can talk to over to the west who's just appeared now, but if you go over and talk to them, you won't be able to do anything. Like, they won't really listen to you. You have to only talk to them after you do this cutscene for reasons that will become obvious in a second. Hey old Darlin, we survived.
Well, well, look who we have here. Heard you were sent off to Nalpina.
And I got out of there as fast as I could. But it was all worth it, Dallin. Here, look at this.
My. Quite a treasure you've got there.
Well, you know, I couldn't have done it without your help.
So, there is more to this gutter churl than first meets the eye. Van, I've an errand, a simple favor to beg of you. I was going to ask that Kites to go, but I should think that you ought to do. No, I think you're just the one. There's a fellow by the name of Azalas, and I need you to bring this sword to him.
That's a sword of the old order.
Speak my name when you arrive. That should be enough to get you in to see him. I've made a note on your map showing you where he can be found. Mind you, you are to deliver the sword to him personally.
I will. Hey, Dallin, do you think I could get you to do something for me? I need you to find out where Penelo is. I wanted to show her what I got from the palace, but I haven't been able to find her anywhere. Can you let me know if you hear anything?
You can just leave that to me.
Thanks, Dallin.
And so it is done, but will it be enough to remind him of what the Order once meant?
And now we have the Sword of the Order, which is a sword that is a key item, so you can't equip it right now. But as Dallin said, we now have an instruction, we now have a reason for it. That person I was on about a minute ago, if you now decide to talk to them, that's where they are on the map, and you can talk to them and they will allow you in. But they do spawn beforehand, so if you're someone who's like... The reason why I bring it up is because it's what happened to me on my first playthrough. I explored, because I didn't really explore much at Lowtown, so when I got back I decided to dedicate exploring it now. And so I just bumped into this guy who was just like, I won't let you pass. And I was like, okay, but what's past you? And it was only after I talked to old Dallin, I was like, oh, right. This is the guy. First delivered something to a man of Azalas. And yeah, who told you that? Old Dallin. He said to give it to him personally. So I get past Dallin, his ears are very good. Okay, come in. And you don't tell anyone what you hear, because it's all about the resistance.
Then what do you make of Andor's proclamation? Are you suggesting they fooled even the Marquis?
What if a judge killed the king, not the captain? That would explain everything, wouldn't it?
In that case, the captain would be brother to a judge. How are we to trust such a man?
Now there is the Bosch that I remember.
Then will you fight again at my side?
His word alone convinces me of nothing.
I'd take his word over that of a mouthpiece Marquis.
Then you name Rex liar with him.
My brother was no liar!
Just the opposite. Rex was the witness they needed. They had to make it appear as if I killed the king. Rex bears no blame. The fates have willed it.
So this is Rex's brother. Your words may convince a child such as this, but they weigh far too lightly on the scales for my taste. Our past will remain separate.
Do you not think Amalia worth saving?
I hold men's lives in my hands. I must see foes in every shadow. The night we moved against Vane, he knew. I will not chance such disadvantage again. I must treat you as I would Andor, as I would treat any abettor of the Empire.
Then what will you do? Hold me here in chains? Some things never change, do they?
Listen to me, Bosch. Your cage may have no bars, but it is a cage. The eyes of the Resistance watch unblinking.
Let them watch. I know something of cages.
That's right. Amalia's in the Resistance.
Then you know her?
Sorta. We met just before we got sent to Nalbina. I've known nicer people.
Our paths keep crossing, yours and mine. It's more than coincidence.
It's annoying.
I'm sorry. Allow me one last annoyance, a favor to ask. I want you to take me to Balthier. Even caged birds need wings.
This makes us even.
Even?
For Nalbina. We couldn't have done it without you.
Barsh now officially joins the party, not as a guest but as a teammate, and he is our second main party member. So I immediately go to his license board, and he is going to be our dedicated physical attacker, so the knight he is going to be. He's going to be using swords and shields for the duration of this adventure. He's going to be taking the brunt of most physical combat and will likely have the most health by the end of this adventure. As previously stated, all license points that you've earned do indeed carry over. So Barsh does have 300 odd license points for me to spend, and when the next party member joins, they will also have 300 odd, or however many more I grind up to by then. His gambits I decide to leave for now, because when it comes to what character I'll be playing as most, like in ones I'll be controlling the most, it'll be Barsh. So his gambits I was not as fussed of compared to the other two. The magic users are the ones that I tend to prioritise putting gambits on more, because I'd rather have more things on autopilot with them, like covering weaknesses and resistances, like healing someone if they're down, instead of doing it manually when things can get a little overwhelming later on when a lot is happening in the boss fights. Whilst the physical attacker of the group, which like I said is going to be Barsh, I prefer to take control of, not just because it's easier to manage, but I can still get use out of him if emergencies arise with items and such. He's also by default not in the party, which I find kind of odd, which you're going to see me change in a second. There we go. And he also starts 2 levels of he also starts like at level 11, so he's likely to be like 2 or 3 levels above the rest of your party, which is pretty beastly. And I get some last few upgrades for Van, but I am increasingly becoming aware as we go at this point of recording that I'm like, Van's only going to be worthwhile for so long. Because the last 2 party members, you've already seen one of them is Pinello. And then the last party member that we're missing is going to be our 3rd of our main team. And then Van's gone. Van's out of the team. I was tempted to equip the Goddess Magicite on Barsh because he's not going to be using magic that much. But I eventually decided against it because I was like, well, I can get other equipment that he might get worth out of later on anyway. And I want to work towards getting the battle harness for him to equip that on him, which will be an accessory 4, which won't be for a little bit, because I need to grind some more license points first. But as of Barsh's request, our next destination is going back to the Sand Sea, where that hunt was, to talk to Balthier and Fran about getting to the skies. How we'll be able to convince him, we'll see. But we're going to try to anyway, but we need to get elsewhere. We can't stay in Rabanastre right now. And that's what we'll be attempting to do next time. So, next time on Final Fantasy XII, we'll be go visiting Balthier and Fran again to see if we can take to the skies to get out of Rabanastre. But until then, you guys take care now.